Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Cat's Track. We post an interview with an amazing Canadian each weekday for your daily inspiration. Today, I would like to introduce you to my friend, David Gould. David was born in Calgary, and he tells me that he never played hockey. Not sure if that means that he's not interested or is interested in the NHL coming back to life or not. David's amazing wife, Leah, is a retired elementary school teacher, and they have two fantastic children and two grandchildren. Besides his family, David is extremely passionate about health and fitness and about helping people get ahead and stay ahead of conflict. Friends, you'll find his full bio attached. David, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome. Thank you, Catherine, for doing this. It's a wonderful exercise in the times we face.
Thank you, David. Are you ready for the questions that we sent you?
I am. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so the first one being, what's been your greatest challenge in the last few months?
You know, that's a very interesting question because with COVID, I think we all face challenges we couldn't not have imagined at the start of all of this. And for me, it connects to my passion about helping people and organizations get ahead of conflict. I spent 30 years mediating, facilitating, sometimes arbitrating legal conflicts. And a lot of those interventions occurred way late in the process after much of the damage had already been done. A lot like the fire department that gets called in when the building's consumed in flames. And it's very good to put the flames out, to end the fire, to end the conflict. But unfortunately, a lot of damage has been done. And the big thing that I see about COVID and our future is that it's going to spur a lot of conflict. In fact, a tidal wave of conflict. A lot of the lawyers that I work with are already reporting people approaching them about something that has occurred as a result of conflict, and they want a remedy, they want compensation, they want to be heard. And I think that that's part of the new normal future that we're going to face. And for me, the courts risk being overwhelmed with that tidal wave. They're shut down now. The backlog of cases is extensive, and there's very little happening in the legal system right now. So I'm concerned that we won't be able to get access to justice in the future nearly to the degree that we have in the past. And that's partially driven by COVID. And there's an awful lot of people now who are suffering economic impacts from COVID who won't be able to afford to sue anybody. And so the conflict world is going to get worse, and that concerns me.
Wow, David, do you mind if we go off script for a second?
Not at all.
Do you see a class action suit happening?
I think there will be a number of class action suits in all sorts of areas. And when you add to it the impacts of climate change and the impacts that has on our ability to buy insurance to protect our futures, it's going to be very complex to deal with these kinds of issues going forward.
Do you mind sharing a little bit about the minister's letter that you sent me, or if there anything that you can just share with the audience?
Sure. You asked me what I saw as a change in the future that was positive. And so I wrote a letter to our Minister of Justice talking about the need to look at ways in which we can make our litigation, our court system more efficient and more open and more available to the average person. And mediation and dispute resolution processes are part of that. But I pointed out, is it time to Uberize our courts because of the effect of disruptive innovation that's occurred as a result of Uber and as a result of the taxi drivers, of course, or the taxi industry buys cars. That's how they expand. Uber found the fact that there's many cars sitting in people's driveways and they're looking for ways to make some extra money. Hence, they created a very large impact on the economy without actually buying any more vehicles. So it's what can we do with the court system with that kind of out-of-the-box thinking? I haven't had an answer back yet, but I'm hopeful that there'll be a dialogue, and after 30 years, maybe I've got a few things I'd like to share with the government.
Well, I would think that coming from you should certainly be responded to. And I think every voice is important right now. I sure hope the ministers are getting back to everyone that have some good ideas.
Well, I did get a letter from the minister's office simply pointing out how busy they are with very many things and that my letter was on his desk for
Good,
follow-up. And so I fully expect that I will receive a response.
good. I am delighted to hear that. And the three things that you'd like to share with the audience today, David.
Well, the first is that we are not our stories. Peter Comrie recently wrote an article about that, and Peter was on your interview a couple of weeks ago. You can think of conflict simply as when something occurs in the past that impacts us, and we think that it's in our stories of what happened to us and what we made it mean. So all conflict exists in the stories of the past. It always occurred in the past. Let me give you a simple example. Think of a junior hockey game. The arena is full of family and friends. The kids have played their hearts out. It's late stages in the game, and the referee misses a call. One of the teams scores to win the game, and instantly half the audience is outraged and half is ecstatic. Now, if you were to visit those families from each side the next day, you'd hear a very different story from each about what happened and about what they made it mean. And that's conflict, basically. It occurred in the past. The hockey game is in the past. And the problem with it is that we bring it into our present moment. We attach the emotional impact that it's had on us. And we make our present moment about that conflict. And we become attached to it. So we get stuck in our story. And maybe we enroll our family, we enroll our neighbors. If we hire a lawyer, we certainly expect them to champion our story. And so our story becomes what our life is about. And when we project that story into the future and plan how we're going to move forward into that future, the conflict can have huge impact on our success and satisfaction in life because it becomes about what we're planning to deal with and do. And I'm not belittling all of the impacts that have occurred in people's lives, but at every point we always have a choice, and we want our choice to be not about the story of the past, but about the future and what we want it to be about and how we want to create it with our friends and family going forward. So the first thing is that conflict exists in our stories. And the second is that we can take a personal decision to unpack our own story, to begin with ourselves. Simple exercise. If you're dealing with a difficult negotiation or a difficult conversation, potential for conflict, take a piece of paper and draw a line down the middle. And on the left-hand side of that page, write down the facts. What actually happened? And on the right-hand side of the page, write down the meanings that and the impacts that had on you. And be objective. Step back from your drama about how right you are and how they're at fault and blame, and be honest with yourself about what happened and what you made it mean. And then, and this is key, the second step, take another piece of paper, write a line down the middle, and on the left-hand side, make your best guess as to how the other parties see the facts. What do you think they think the facts are? And on the right-hand side of the page, write down what you think they make it mean and why it's important to them and how you think that it must look to them from their perspective. Put yourself in their shoes. And when you do that, you get insight and perspective on the conflict that allows you to stand apart from it long enough to decide, is there ways in the future that I can collaborate with my counterparts, the people I'm in conflict with, to co-create and have conversations about future possibilities that solve the problem, that deal with the conflict, that get our interests and needs met acceptably. And so preparation for your negotiations to get ahead and stay out of conflict with two simple tools: your own story, their story, and objective assessment. And the third thing I think that's so important is you don't have to do it on your own. You're not alone in this. We get embarrassed, we get caught up in conflicts, we have trouble, we justify that we must have been right because of our story. And so we're hard pressed to get help when we need it, help from our family, from our friends. But remember, it's not getting their help to buy into our story and tell us we were right. It's in fact getting them to help us do that unpacking of our story, to get them literally to help us with that piece of paper with the left hand and the right hand, and to be honest with ourselves.
I
We
love
can
it.
also reach out to professional help in the form of our accountants, our financial planners, our business advisors, our business coaches, because their focus is really on helping us have a better future. Otherwise, we wouldn't have hired them. So they will be quite prepared to work with us to find ways past the conflicts and past the story that we've caught ourselves up with. So enrolling your advisors that are already part of your story in co-creating a better future from that story makes eminently good sense. And then there's the professionals of conflict coaches, for example. I recently had the president of a large development company call me up with a problem that he had with his partner developer. They had a huge project that was hugely important to both of them. And they had a conflict that they needed to deal with. He needed to have difficult conversations. And so I worked with them through what I call the 8 steps of preparing for negotiation. And he did the homework, did the analysis as we've been talking about, and later reported that in 2.5 hours, he and his counterpart on the other side had been able to resolve a matter that, if it had gone to litigation, would have been millions of dollars and would have probably destroyed their ability to complete the project.
Wow.
So getting ahead of conflict is a useful exercise for sure, with help from conflict coaches. And then there's the mediator role, which I've played for years, and that's a neutral third party that steps into a conflict and basically works with both sides to do what we've just been talking about, to unpack the story for what happened, what we made it mean, and very often with lawyers overlay the legal principles. And because I got gray hair and have been doing this for a long time, I can help them over the roadblocks and barriers by anticipating what a court might do, what a judge might do with a particular situation, and basically help them move the conflict back into the past, leave it there, and instead focus on what are we going to do together to co-create a solution in the future that works acceptably for both sides in the conflict. And so that's what a mediator does, is he works with the parties to shift the focus from the past and story to the future and what's possible. And so that's that. And I guess I shouldn't leave lawyers out, because lawyers are often a very key part of conflict. But I suggest you want to find a lawyer who is not only skilled to be a gunfighter and will be a champion for you in court and fight like hell for your side, but at the same time they need to dual track, looking for opportunities to have the quality of conversations that will resolve matters. And so you want a lawyer that is skilled in both the negotiation track and the litigation track.
Yeah, I agree.
So that's basically my passion, and I'd committed when I semi-retired to moving my practice more to people who wanted to get ahead and stay ahead of conflict, and to do things like my 8 steps to prepare for negotiations. And COVID has slowed that down, and I'm sad about that, because I'm not able to speak to groups. I'm not able to work with people who are looking to resolve conflicts nearly to the degree that I was doing so before COVID hit.
Well, get ready, David, because I think you're going to get super busy.
Yeah, yes, there's no shortage of conflict out there. It's inevitable and everywhere, and how we deal with it has a huge impact in our success and satisfaction in life.
Oh, and it's going to be so complex going forward, just as everybody's starting to go back to work and all the other considerations that you have already talked about. I can just imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
So in closing, now I know you've got a message that you want to share in the end, just, the final message. Before we get there, do you mind, that my passion is around brain and mental health. Do you have any comments about what I see as the next pandemic? That's certainly a lot of the people that I've been talking to are experiencing a lot of negative experiences in their life for many, many reasons. It's sometimes very tragic. What are your thoughts on the mental health pandemic? And do you see that there's one coming, or is here?
I think it is coming. I think it may already be here, and it's understandable, because people are unable to deal with the kinds of stress that they had before the COVID in any effective way, so that they're feeling more and more trapped and more helpless, powerless perhaps. And when you think about the loss of jobs, the loss of the ability to connect with loved ones because of the COVID, it's bound to have huge impact. Some of that is going to turn into conflicts, as we have discussed. So I think that the mental health professionals are going to be overwhelmed, just like the court system is going to be overwhelmed as we attempt to help people. I hope that we all will continue, as you see many examples. I see many examples of people reaching out to make a difference in their small communities, to host events in their front yard driveways, to drive by and celebrate birthdays, and that I love that. I think it keeps me positive, because we are human beings. Nothing ever gets created, but we create it in conversation with others. We don't accomplish anything on our own. We only accomplish future by collaborating with those around us, and hopefully we do more and more of that, and we don't get caught in the trap of fault and blame, and who was wrong, who was right. The Sufi poet Rumi, the 13th century Sufi poet, said, "Out beyond ideas of right doing and wrong doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there." We need to be in that field.
Well, that gave me goosebumps. It reminded me of when my dad was alive. He had a lot of what was called dadisms, and one thing he would say is, "No one gets anywhere without everyone."
That's right. Yeah, I believe that.
Me too.
Yeah.
Any final words, David, that you'd like to share?
Well, you had asked me to think about changes in the future that I was hopeful for, and I've talked about it. It's the court system. It's the use of more tools and processes for improving how we deal with difficult conversations and how we relate to each other.
I love it.
And I'm optimistic that will happen, but I think it's going to be a tough grind.
I agree.
Realistically.
I'm just delighted that you're still going to be available to all of us when we need you, because your wisdom it shines right through, and I'm delighted that you were able to join us today and share that with us.
Well, thank you very much, Catherine. It was my pleasure.
Thank
I
you.
babbled on a bit, but
No,
we'll get there.
everything is always perfect, and as it should be.
You bet. Thank you.
Everybody, that was my friend David Gould. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Cats Track, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.